All right, here we go. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Story Hour. I'm your host, Daniel Marcus. My co-host is Mara Blackwell. Um, I hope you're all healthy and safe, taking care of yourselves and your loved ones. Um, Today was a good day for me. First time in a while I've felt like the light at the end of the tunnel was not an oncoming train. So it's a good day. But we're still shut in, we're still locked down. And we're looking for distraction and entertainment and maybe a little bit more than that, which is why I started Story Hour and I asked Laura to join me to help me keep it going. Um, Story Hour turns to the second oldest form of entertainment in human history, which is folks sitting around the fire in the flickering firelight, telling lies to each other. So that's what we do every week. We've got two authors, about 30 minutes each. And in addition to that, each week we offer a couple of brief PSAs. We request that our readers suggest some suitable organizations so that if you're in a position to help, you might be able to do so. Our readers tonight are Mina Lee and Jordan Kurella. Jordan is reading tonight for Directions for Youth and Families. That's dfyf.org. Their mission statement says that they improve the lives of individuals, families, and communities through counseling, education, and support. Directions for Youth and Families impacts over 6,500 youth and their families each year through mental, emotional, and behavioral health services, which sounds awesome. Thank you for suggesting that, Jordan. Mina is reading tonight from the Michigan Taiwanese American Organization, a nonprofit organization founded in 2002 to promote cultural exchanges between Michigan residents and Taiwanese Americans through a variety of community events. Equally great organization, it sounds like. And thank you very much for suggesting that, Mina. That's mitaiaa.weebly.com. So if you're here via Zoom tonight, settle in, relax, but please mute your mic, but feel free to leave your camera on if you like, because our readers like to see y'all. Feel free to use chat as well. Our Facebook Live friends, feel free to kibitz, but of course we can't see your comments yet. So we have a really great program tonight, so let's get right to it. We're going to start with Mina. Mina Lee is a Taiwanese American author, born and bred in Ann Arbor, Michigan, a great town. More of her work can be seen in Alphabet of Embers, Kaleidotrope, Robot Dinosaurs, and the upcoming Remapping Wonderland, classic fairy tales retold by people of color. When she's not writing, she likes to cook, knit, and take springtime walks in her neighborhood. Take it away, Mina.
Thank you, Daniel. So the story I have today is called Hunt, and it's in Translunar Traveler's Lounge. It's in the February 2020 issue. And some warnings before we start. If you follow me on Twitter, this is the cannibalism story I've been talking about over and over and over, to the point where people are probably sick of it. Yes, so it has cannibalism. Yes. There is gore. There is blood. There is also psychological abuse. So if that is, I understand completely if that is a lot for you. It's a very dark story. But if it's not, I'll just go ahead and begin. Princess Severna, in her personal preparations for the Kingmaker hunt, discovered the pleasures of raw meat. First, gobbets of beef from the kitchens, barely seared over flames. Then larger hunks, carefully cut, raw and dripping. Soon she grew used to blood's heavy coppery tang, and she would run to the returning hunters, greedy for their latest kill, heedless of the mud that gathered on her slippers. She'd even tried offal. Smooth, creamy livers were her favorite. Hearts tended to be tough and chewy, and tripe's rubbery texture didn't so much disgust as it did underwhelm her. Entrails had to be cleaned and seared before they were edible. But when they were, how delicious they tasted, fatty and silky on the tongue. A shame the kingmaker hunt didn't allow time to properly dress the kill, much less a fire to cook the beast's flesh. However, according to rites, eating the meat raw would grant the new king a long and prosperous rule. A shame indeed, but Severna decided that upon her return, with the taste of blood still fresh in her mouth, she would request entrails at her coronation banquet. It was a small pleasure, but one she looked forward to nonetheless. She planned to succeed where her husband, Crown Prince Yorist, had failed, and it would be a well-deserved victory over that wretch. Unlike him, she would return from the hunt after sunrise, with the kingmaker's bones as her crown. Once, when Yorist still dazzled her like a newborn star, he'd called her sweet, dutiful Severna. She'd blushed with pleasure whenever she heard it. Being sweet and dutiful was the ideal to which all wives aspired, even princesses, and it had made her happy to know she pleased her husband. Unfortunately, being sweet and dutiful to Yorist meant serving as an ornament. At first it started so subtle she hadn't noticed. Yorist's occasional mutterings about how sometimes they would need individual time alone were easy to ignore. But when Severna came to him concerned about 11th hour cancellations for their cherished garden walks, or sudden departures at banquets, he chided her for assuming the worst. His love for her, he claimed, stretched limitless as the sky. But as the months gave way to years, she came to understand that in reality, he saw her at best as a clever pet, and at worst as an old pair of boots to be carelessly cast aside. In hindsight, Severna had only ever been a plaything, instead of a living, breathing human with a heart and soul of her own. Sometimes the memory of how Yorist had casually told her that he had once been lovers with Lizelle, one of her ladies-in-waiting, rose up in her mind like throat-burning bile. He'd waited a year to tell her this. It hurt in the final months to hear of Lizelle at Yorist's dinners or picnics, while Severna was often directed to take her evening meals alone. As she loaded her crossbow for another round of target practice on the very edge of the palace grounds, it also occurred to her that Yorist had never cared about what she liked. The gifts she'd received from him on holidays were cheap trinkets, or worse, were completely thoughtless with respect to her tastes, compared to the carefully selected items for his lords, or even Lizelle, based on their personal tastes and hobbies. He'd never cared to discover Severna, the wife he claimed to love, to find her heart, strange and beautiful as coral, and as deeply hidden in the depths of her. Such selfishness, it stoked the fires in Severna's chest whenever she recalled his dismissals, stoked them so hot that she couldn't breathe. Yorist had manipulated her completely, right until the day he'd cast her off. He'd often whispered in her ear, from the palace gardens to their marriage bed, how blessed he was to have met her, to have her for his wife. How she believed him, even when shortly after the wedding, he began turning her down when she'd asked him to join him on hunts, picnics, or even the twilight walks in the castle gardens, with that phrase she grew to hate. "Oh, I'd rather be alone today, sweetling." She always heard this phrase after days of yours spending hunts, picnics, and banquets with the lords, as if he'd simply forgotten to parcel out some time for her yet again. And when she'd revealed that she loved him and needed him to be the husband he'd promised she'd be, he made plans to exile her to some far-off convent, forever forgotten and alone. To the best of everyone's knowledge, poor Princess Severna would be making her holy vows by year's end. The court pitied her, this sweet, dutiful princess, now cast aside, but nobody knew of the iron that ran through that heart of hers. At sunrise, Severna rode from the castle to the Devil's Needle, where the Kingmaker lurked. She reached the foot of the daunting peak that earned the mountain its name before midday. Wood smoke from hunters hung in the cool autumn air, and a pang of sorrow rippled through her for a moment. Yorist had often smelled of wood smoke when he'd returned from hunts. The scent reminded Severna of happier times, of the man she'd loved, a man that had never truly existed in the first place. She lingered on the path for a few more moments, allowing herself to indulge in her sorrow, and then began her ascent. All would be well soon enough. Her ascent took most of the day. The sun hovered low on the horizon by the time she reached the mountain's summit. She rested for a while in a small grove of apple trees. She managed to eat some bread with a little cheese and some salted pork for dinner. Then she decided to take a chance and try one of the apples. The one she chose wasn't quite ripe yet. Sharp and tangy, with the skin slightly dusty on her teeth, and still the best apple she'd had in years. Yours had given her apples before from his orchards, sweet, mealy, and bursting with sticky juice. She never felt quite clean after eating one, no matter how many times she washed her hands. This apple was like the ones she had enjoyed in her childhood, cutting away any sluggishness and helping her focus. Eating it made her feel like herself again in a way she hadn't felt in years, remembering who she was before Yorist, and she felt lighter with every bite. Severna took some time to enjoy the sun sinking away, watching it drop out of sight as the sky bloomed crimson and violet. She checked her things again to make sure she hadn't forgotten any important items, from her dagger to the vial of her menstrual blood in a small leather pouch hanging from her waist. A quiet excitement awakened in her as she waited nightfall. When the moon hung in the sky, silvery and pale, Severna took up her crossbow. She made her way along the dark path to the eerily silent wood waiting at its end. Here the kingmaker, her prey, lurked. She felt an ancient magic humming everywhere from the trees to the cool night air, resonating down to the very marrow in her bones. It made her breath quicken with anticipation. She slipped into the wood, searching for the summoning tree that would call the kingmaker. All the previous rulers of her land had stood before its sprawling, gnarled roots, reciting the ancient words that would draw the beast out. "O kingmaker, feed me your flesh and crown me with your bones." Severna had whispered them like a prayer before bed every night since Yoris had vanished. His disappearance had almost been a relief after their acrimonious parting. His threat still rang in her ears. "When I return, I'm sending you away to the abbey up north. I need to free myself from you." She had realized that Yoris had slowly been growing distant, his ardor cooling. But when she tried to tell him her worries, he would shake his head sadly and say, "But sweetling, I would never hurt you. Why would I do such a thing?" And Severna, now the villain, now the one who had caused pain, would immediately apologize, telling him, "No, darling, of course you'd never hurt me." So she'd let herself believe Yorst's justifications. His burdens were heavy, with the death of his father earlier this spring, and preparations to lead the kingdom in his stead. It was only natural that he hardly had time to spare for her. If Severna was patient, he'd return to the kind, affectionate man she'd married. Yorst's final dismissal, along with laying the blame for their relationship's demise at Severna's feet, had been a memorable, if harsh, lesson. In his eyes, she was, and had been, the problem all along, for not being patient enough, not being understanding enough. Severna pushed the painful memories away. She had a beast to take down, and she had to do so by sunrise. Then she heard heavy breathing like that of a wolf. Footsteps followed, and the snapping of twigs. She took shelter behind a thicket, peering out as far as she dared. Her breath caught in her throat. It couldn't be the kingmaker. It didn't come unless summoned, and as far as she knew, she was the only one in the wood. Severna drew her dagger. Her heart pounded wildly in her chest as she tried to make out whether it was friend or foe. The human shape staggered out of the moonlight, frantic and bedraggled. "Who goes there?" Severna cried, dagger at the ready. "Show yourself." "Severna," the shape cried, and Severna's blood ran cold. That was Yorst's voice in Yorst's arms, reaching for her, sweeping her up into a tight embrace. She breathed in the scent of wood smoke. "Oh, Severna, sweetling," Yorst bleated, tears soaking into her shoulder. "It's so good to see you." Severna froze in shock, then stiffly pushed him back. "I wish I could say the same," she growled. Yorst laughed, as if what had happened had been the pettiest of marital spats. "Are you still upset with me?" he asked. "Why shouldn't I be?" Severna growled. "You were going to banish me." "Dearest, you mustn't take that to heart. I keep telling you that you assume the worst." Severna resisted the urge to flinch at that phrase or box his ears. She hated how easily those words threw her into self-doubt, into wondering if perhaps Yorst was right, and she really did assume the worst, or really had remembered conversations incorrectly. What was he even doing here, alive and well? Severna's mind raced, her thoughts whirring like a flock of crows. Everyone knew candidates who failed to capture the Kingmaker vanished with the dawn, never to be heard from again. How is it that he was still there? Was this even Yorst? Or was it a ghoul wearing his face? What are you doing on this wretched mountaintop? Yorst asked. Were you trying to rescue me, sweetling? Severna returned his adoring gaze with a blank stare. At this very moment, it was just like the old days, when Yorst was nothing but lovely to her, a man who wanted to do anything to make her happy. But, she reminded herself, what she'd seen then and what she was seeing now was only a well-crafted mask. It's been 3 months since you left, Yorst, she said coolly. When you didn't return the next day, we assumed you had failed. Yorst's face grew pale, his mouth gaping like that of a dying fish. You mean it's already been that long, he cried. His hands twitched at his sides as if he was trying to count the time that had passed. That can't be, it's only been days. Days, Severna asked, trying to hide her astonishment. Everyone knew that those vying for the throne had to leave the wood by sunrise. How is it that Yorst had been here for months and not known any better? Yes, days, Yorst snapped. This damned wood, I can't stand it. His body shivered all over from the shock. Severna pitied his predicament for a single fleeting moment. Surely you noticed the change in seasons during your time here, she said warily. It doesn't matter now, he said, then suddenly leaned over, grabbing her by the waist and kissing her hungrily on the lips. You're here now, and we can get out of this damned place together. And once we're home, we can try and put this all behind us. Severna scowled at the blatant lie of reconciliation, and she pushed him off, wiping her mouth on her sleeve. I have no intention of doing so, she retorted. No? Then why are you here, my love? Severna gritted her teeth at the term of endearment. None of your concern. I have important things to do, so why don't you wait here? As she turned to leave, Yorst looped his arm through hers. It reminded her of the garden walks they used to take early in their courtship. She could almost smell the perfume of springtime lilacs despite the crisp autumn. Oh, but sweetling, Yorst pleaded. The wood is frightening, especially at night. I can't bear to be alone. Severna twisted herself free with an irritated grunt. Then go past the tree line and wait there, she said, under the moonlight. The wood was not a prison. What had kept Yorst there for so long? Severna, Yorst cried, wringing his hands. You're being cruel. Not as cruel as you, she shot back. She kept walking. The moonlight that filtered through the branches overhead guided her, as she searched for the tree that would invoke the Kingmaker. The map she consulted prior to her journey showed it standing at the wood's heart. No paths lay ahead to show her the way, nor had previous kings mentioned any landmarks. Now see, Yorst said on her heels. Here you are again, upset with me. I do so hate when you're upset. Your comfort is not my concern, Severna replied. You've always chosen it over the truth, anyway. To him, Severna's heart was a mirror that reflected his beliefs and not her own. She kept her eyes open and pressed on, looking for gnarled roots and a faint luminescence. Why are you heading further in? We should leave, Yorst asked, seizing her roughly by the arm. Haven't you heard what I said? It's terrifying in there. If you're so frightened, go home by yourself, snapped Severna. She tore away from him, breaking into a run. Her instincts nagged at her incessantly. Why did he insist on staying by her side? He could leave the Devil's Needle whenever he pleased. Unless he couldn't leave. Not on his own. That would explain him clinging to her when before he pushed her away. Of course, he wasn't truly happy to see her. Once he'd gotten what he needed, she'd be the cast-off wife, headed to a convent, never to be heard from again. No matter, Severna thought, ignoring Yorst's cries. He was her responsibility no longer. He'd wanted to cast her aside, so she owed him nothing. She quickened her pace, hoping to put him far behind her. Then she saw it, a faint golden glow, just out of the corner of her right eye, and then in her ears, a rustling like a babbling brook. Severna turned, running even faster, until the Kingmaker tree greeted her, so stunning in its beauty that she wanted to weep with awe. It towered over her, its leaves waving gently like dancing emerald fans. Its roots sprawled for yards, glowing like strings of pearls lit from within. Severna took a moment to savor its splendor, then walked toward it. Stop, Yorst shouted. Severna ignored him, nimbly climbing over the roots. If he wasn't going to leave her alone, he could stand and watch her claim her victory. But when Severna reached the trunk, Yorst wasn't far behind, judging by the sound of his panting at her heels. She'd only managed to stand when he grabbed her by the arm, wrenching her backward so that she fell down. "What do you think you're doing?" he barked. "This place is dangerous." Severna gritted her teeth and clutched her bruised shoulder. She rose to her feet again slowly but steadily and made her way back to the trunk, feeling the pouch at her waist and hoping its contents were still intact. "Sweetling, why won't you trust me? I'm not trying to be cruel to you," Yorst pleaded, grabbing at her ankles. "Why do you always think that?" "Because you are cruel," Severna spat back. "I should never have trusted you. I'm not going to be fooled by you, not anymore." She took the glass vial from the pouch. "What is that?" Yorst demanded. "What do you think it is?" Severna shot back. The contents swirled darkly in the moonlight. "It's my blood." The tree only accepted blood from noble houses. Fortunately, Severna's had a history that reached back for centuries. "Your blood?" Yorst shrank back, repulsed. "Why would you even need such a thing? Unless—" He looked at Severna, and his eyes widened in realization. "Severna, you can't! You mustn't!" "Oh yes," said Severna, uncorking the stopper. "I'm going to be king." Yorst lunged at her. "You would steal my throne?" he shouted, snatching at the vial. Severna spun deftly to her left, just out of Yorst's reach, teeth bared in defiance. "I'm not stealing anything. You didn't return, remember? Now the throne is for whoever takes it." "Severna, no!" Severna looked him in the eye as she smashed the vial. Dark blood spattered onto the tree's pale gold roots. "O Kingmaker," she recited, "feed me your flesh and crown me with your bones." Yorst let out a piercing howl. His spine arced back at an impossible angle. Severna recoiled, seeing all his flesh undulating under his skin as he collapsed onto the ground. He gasped in agony as brown fur spread all over his chest. Oh, that chest and all the sweet memories she had of resting her head upon it, listening to his heart. How safe, how loved she'd felt in his arms then. She could only watch as his legs swelled and burst from his breeches, reshaping themselves into the haunches of a wolf. A brief sadness pierced her, keen as ice, as she remembered tracing her fingers along the nacreous stretch marks that spread across his hips and thighs. Antlers burst from his head, unfurling like the branches of a tree. His skull elongated and his eyes went pitch black. With a pained grunt, he rose to his feet. He glanced at Severna and fled. She stood, breathless with shock. The faded remnants of her love for Yorst roiled with her hatred for him, along with the bracing new knowledge of what happened to those who failed in their hunt for the Kingmaker. How often she'd mourned the man she thought he was, and then, taking a deep breath, she loaded her crossbow. She was going to truly enjoy this hunt. As Yorst ran, Severna snuck from tree to tree, making just enough noise to let him know he was being followed. She stopped behind a sturdy oak, aimed her crossbow, and fired. The bolt clipped Yorst's hind leg, sending him staggering. He whimpered, hobbling as he attempted to staunch the bleeding. Then he pressed forward, blood dripping on the ground after him. Severna followed Yorst's trail, slipping from behind tree to tree on quiet feet. He was slow, unaccustomed to his new form. She could hear his every step, every snapped twig, every shallow breath. She found all this noise deeply satisfying. It meant she could take him down without wasting too many bolts. So a failed candidate would become the Kingmaker. That was why Yorst had tried to make her leave the forest. He hadn't wanted her to invoke his new form. Or worse yet, keep her until dawn so that she would take his place. She smiled grimly as she took aim. She knew Yorst's true character, unlike the fresh-faced bride that she had been years ago. How she'd brimmed with joy at their wedding. She'd had no knowledge of the pain in her future. In the end, she was only a toy to be discarded when he got bored. The bolt sailed smoothly through the air right into Yorst's flank. Severna grinned as he cried out. His pace slowed to a limp as he frantically looked around. Come out, he bellowed. Come out and show yourself, you wretch. No, Severna thought. Yorst's breathing grew more labored. He scanned the area over and over. Blood trickled from the wound in his leg, glittering in the moonlight that filtered down from the branches overhead. Severna watched him from her hiding place, waiting to make her next move. She'd give him some time to try and flee, while letting the pain grow. Just a little time, not too much after all. She remembered Yoris talking about how his time was valuable, so valuable that she could only come when she was summoned, and had to promptly leave in order to do so, as if she was a maidservant, and not the woman to whom he made sacred vows of love. Severna could understand needing time alone. She had a solitary nature herself. But to have only mere scraps of his time while he was much more generous with others, it was absolutely unacceptable. And yet he had tricked her into thinking she'd been the unreasonable one. She had been worthy of so much more respect from him. She knew that now. Yoris limped on, and Severna followed, cloaking herself in the trees and their shadows. Interesting how Yoris had always used time to control her, to ensure her good behavior. Now Severna was the one with the upper hand, while Yoris was terrified and bleeding. Where she'd used to give him all the time he wanted, now she was giving him only as much as she deemed necessary. Strange, she thought, how he'd been so eager in the beginning, pleading for only a few moments of her time, and often managing to charm her so much that she would give him hours, sometimes even half a day. Perhaps she'd fire the next bolt into his back to bring him down. Dawn would be here soon, and with it Yorst's bones as her crown. The next bolt missed its target, but the one after that struck Yorst's shoulder, sending him sprawling onto the ground. Severna hissed. 2 bolts lost now. Severna, Yorst howled, why do you torture me like this? He writhed in agony, the claws on his hind legs scratching deep grooves into the ground. Severna refused to answer his pleas, though they gave her great satisfaction. Instead, she loaded one of her remaining bolts into her crossbow. Time to end this. She fired, striking Yorst's side, and he moaned. His antlers scratched the dirt. Blood seeped from the wound, turning his fur black. Now, don't struggle. If only you'd stayed still, it wouldn't have hurt you so badly. Why must you do this to yourself? Severna chided, striding out into the clearing. She couldn't help but smile in satisfaction as she approached Yorst, now brought low. Yorst's black eyes flashed with rage. Heartless woman, he rasped. If only I'd known you were a murderer and thief under that sweet mask of yours. Likewise, Severna said acridly, kneeling and putting her boot on his throat. Now, darling. She drew her dagger from its sheath. You can watch me eat your flesh, or I can slash your throat before I do so. I thought I would offer you this choice as one final kindness. Yorst spat in her face. I won't be dead forever, he gasped. My spirit will remain in this wood until I can find someone else to take my place as kingmaker. His words hinted of triumph, but to Severna's ears it sounded more like consolation. Yorst always did love to pity himself. She wiped her cheek with her sleeve. So, you've made your decision. Severna thrust her dagger into Yorst's chest. Blood gushed, warm and sticky on her hands as his screams filled her ears. He thrashed when Severna began to saw, the blade making soft, wet noises as she cut. Don't struggle so, she admonished. You're making this more difficult than it has to be. Soon she had a ragged chunk of flesh the size of her palm, so warm it gave off steam in the cool autumn night. She smiled at Yorist as she brought the bleeding hunk of meat to her lips. Long live the king, she whispered and bit down. Even with the hot iron taste of blood filling her mouth, his flesh was the best meat she'd ever had in her life. None of the raw meat she'd had in preparation for this moment could ever compare to the unctuous texture, or the rich, sweet taste, as if kingmakers lived off fruits and honey. She'd expected to feel wistful at this moment. Sad, even, remembering the lovelier days with Yorst. But all she felt was a rush of exhilaration and relief at her triumph, finally realized. Yorst would haunt her no longer. She would be king alone. Severna swallowed and wiped blood from her mouth. A quiet gray crept along the dark sky, and scattered birdsong emanated from the treetops. The sun would rise soon. Yorst's whimpers were strangled under her boot. I should have poisoned you before I left for the Devil's Needle, he croaked. You were always so troublesome. I knew you weren't good for me for the start. Now you're the one in exile, Severna said, laying her dagger against Yorst's throat. I think it's best for both of us if I end your suffering now. She drew the blade quickly from ear to ear. Yorst gurgled as blood foamed from the fresh wound, his black eyes bulging for a few moments before his head flopped lifelessly on the ground. Rest well, dear, Severna whispered. When Princess Severna returned from the Devil's Needle, she rode through the city streets crowned with the kingmaker's spine, the bloody bones gleaming like rubies and pearls in her brow. A trace of blood marred one corner of her smile. but otherwise she was pristine and perfect, glowing as if the sun shone on her and no one else. She was crowned king later that autumn, when the crows sat in the trees' naked branches, their hoarse calls echoing in the cold wind. In the cathedral, she was the dutiful, thoughtful woman everyone had known from the beginning. Her voice mild but clear, she swore the oath. When the high priest placed the golden crown on her head, her expression was meek as that of the innocent maiden she'd once been. However, the banquet, while bountiful, was unusual. Centerpiece of freshly killed boar, roasted for a very short time, its meat still bloody on the plate. Servants moved along the guests, bearing platters with sliced raw liver dusted in salt and melted butter. And the apples that graced each table puckered mouths with their tart, vinegary bite. The most memorable dish, however, wasn't the boar itself, but its entrails, marinated in garlic, wine, and pepper, and grilled until brown, cut into bite-sized pieces. While the banquet guests eyed this dish warily, King Zavurna's face lit up at the presentation of the offal to her table. She took one piece between finger and thumb, popping it into her mouth like a marzipan fruit. Her eyes rolled back with pleasure as she smacked her lips. Delicious, she proclaimed. And soon enough the guests joined her, eating every morsel with unabashed relish. The end.
Wow, what a great story. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, man.
Happy Inauguration Day.
Indeed.
Yeah.
The king is dead. All right. Take a breath, a little pause, regroup, which is what we customarily do between stories. Story on. All right. Thank you again, Mina. That was great. Our next author, Jordan Kurella. Jordan is a queer and disabled author who has lived all over the world, including Cairo and Chicago. In their past lives, they were a barista, a radio DJ, and a social worker. Their work has been featured in Apex, Beneath Ceaseless Skies, and Strange Horizons, great markets. Currently, Jordan lives in Ohio with their cat and service dog. Welcome, Jordan. Take it away.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right. So I'm going to be reading a story that was published in September of 2020 that I wrote in July of 2019. It heavily features apocalypse. I had no idea in July of 2019 that we would be in the situation we would be in September of 2020. The main characters are carrion eaters. There are several bits of human remains and the consumption of human remains. However, the story is joyful. It is about found family. It is about coming together against great odds and being cast out of one's former home. So it's ultimately joyful. However, it's about set in the backdrop of apocalypse and the end of humanity. Sorry. So I just want to let you know, if that's too much, you can nope out. I do not mind. It is called Awake for the Living. It was published in Zooscape in September of 2020. My name is Jordan Kurella. Thank you. The crow was beautiful when she ate, all black sheen and viscera. Her beak slick with spoils as it tilted back, neck bulging with her quarry. The quarry meant for us, we vultures. I watched her. We all watched her. This solitary crow, separated from her friends, her loved ones, her murder. I wondered sometimes if she were lonely, solitary as she was, as I was lonely, perched on this stone ledge high above a narrow street with my own friends, my own loved ones, my wake. My loneliness crushed my hollow bones. The pain of it echoed in the wail of the wind between the tall and huddled buildings. I felt it as I watched the crow, preening her feathers over the humans we'd intended to take as ours. The humans spilling out of the vehicles, hemming in either side of this narrow street, the humans scattered across the sidewalks, once warm in their winter coats, now strangled by their own scarves. Kitrita, queen of the wake, watched me as I watched the crow. Her hungry eyes, ever vigilant, always searching, cast disapproval over me. So I shuddered. I shuddered to shake the wind away, the pain away, the loneliness away. Was it possible to be lonely? To be so shaken when shadowed by Kitrita, she who once called me her sister, her favorite, who told me she'd never let me go. My heart told me it was, as it ached for the crow. The world belongs to us now, Kitrita said to me the next day, as we fed on a once bustling city street, now strewn with corpses and bullet casings, the city we traveled to when we heard the feeding was good. It is our responsibility. On either side of us, buildings loomed with windows like mirrors. They echo back to us the riches of the street below, echo back to us, me, Kitrita, the rest of the wake, listening, coyotes some distance away, howling, crows in conversation above, cawing. A single solitary crow once again captured my attention. Kitrita once again watched me, watching her. But it was time to feed. My attention was now captured by the rip of fabric as Kitrita's talons gripped firm around a human arm. She tore free cloth, pieces of coat and patterned shirt, then exposed human skin, a signal for the rest of us to eat. We would all follow her lead, all of us, her bald head shining in the winter sun, red and glorious, its sheen unmatched amongst the rest of us. Kitrita would eat last, as she always did, even that day. When I moved in to feed, Kitrita moved her great black body in front of me, her white wing feathers marred by street filth. No, Tokrata, she said, none for you today. She looked to the crow, then held her wings wide, blocking me from my quarry, my feeding, blocking me from what she had won for me, for us, for all of us. What we had won together, she and I, what we had scouted, would not be the last time she cast me out. But I still had hope. The feeding was good in this city, which it had not been in our travels here. The smaller towns we passed had been barren, dotted by boarded up houses that smelled of delicious decay, but we could not get inside. Roads with vehicles on them with open doors, but the bodies too far gone for feeding, destroyed by highway sunlight, destroyed by coyote bite marks and others who had come before. This city was flush with corpses, littered with carrion eaters, littered now by Kitrita and her ire for me. I saw it in her eyes, in the way her body blocked me from feeding. I heard it in the wail of the wind beyond. Kitrita and I had once been one together. She welcomed me into the wake, called me her sister, her friend, but no more. Now the crow called out to me. She called once before she left, her voice a new music over the slash of beak against bone. Kitrita had a cruel desire, one that had become familiar, now taken from me. Her proud hisses and talon-like hold on my attention were gone. I was no longer welcome as her shadow. All my affection tossed aside for a few glances at a crow. My reflection echoed back to me in a window now, a window beckoning me to the image of the wake, feeding to such finery. Their eyes sparkled as their necks tipped back with their spoils, but my eyes were not the same. They were dull, deadened by loneliness, by grief. In the reflection, I was a filthy, discarded thing, rotten and spoiled as the wake fed. My red head hung low, its sheen cracked and dusty. The wake, with their slick beaks and hungry eyes, jewels in comparison. Tokrata, me, I crouched, counterfeit to the side. Winter's sun arrived late and left early, but it was warmer now than it should be, so said Kitrita. This she knew from the stories passed down from wake to queen to queen. She was our guide and our keeper, and she had shut me out. I had not eaten in 2 days. The stories that said that the city fell slowly, so slowly, fell by lies told and lies believed, until one day the world's people could not feed each other any longer. So they fought. And the world wanted to breathe, so said Kitrita. So it made the people angry. It gave itself back to us, its scavengers. On the first day I saw the crow, she was listening to our stories. Her head tilted to one side, black eyes shining, blinking, curious. She was perched on a window with curtains still shut. The details of a life so human, they remain long after those human lives are gone. Takrata. I heard my name whispered through Kitrita's rasp of a throat, through the carrion taste of her breath. Untucking my head from my wing, Kitrita was so close. Her beak could scrape mine in the sunlight. My own wing was no protection. It was now marred from street filth. 3 days of scouting, 3 days of not eating, 3 days of Kitrita's ire reflecting back at me. Takrata, she said, go and scout to the northern end of the city, away from the water. She said, I give this task to you, and you alone. Alone? We do not scout alone. I could see by the lack of hunger in her eyes that she did not want me anymore. She was banishing me from our balcony with trees that still had their leaves so deep in winter, a balcony covered in our own down and other treasures we could carry. It was done. I would leave this place to find my own if I could survive that long. Setting to the sky, I saw the sun cresting over the wide, wide river. It lit up the ripples in such brilliance. Sorry, my cat wants out the door. Sorry. Wide, such brilliance. The sight set my heart rippling alongside it. The taste of the air on my tongue, the feel of the wind on my feathers. I was alone. I was no longer a shadow of Kitrita. The once fluttering beat I had in my throat for so long was now gone. My heart had returned to my chest. It beat in tandem with my breathing. My wings took on a new steadiness as I soared high above the river, taking in the beauty of what I had claimed, such calm and such silence, but for one solitary cry, a crow's. Her name was Rock, and when she brought me to the train station in the northern part of the island, we settled on a bench. We chatted until darkness. When the night grew cold, she curled against my wing. That first night, she tucked her beak into my feathers, subtle this way when she ran the crest of her head against the baldness of my loam. I like this, Rock said. I like this. I was curious about this, about you. As the winter winds set in around this, I heard doves cooing together. Rock brought her smaller body close to me, her beak up to mine. They touched, our beaks. Hers black and beautiful and glorious, clean, because she always kept it clean. Mine white and hooked. I ran it over the edge of hers to feel the smoothness of it. It set my feathers to shuddering. Shuddering now not to shake away this moment with Rock, but to keep it close, with the wail of the wind singing in the hollows of my bones. I wanted this, she said. Her eyes closed. I wanted this so much. We kept at it. We kept at it as the doves cooed, as the wind sang, as the night continued on despite us. The world belongs to us now, Kitrita once said to us on that city street before she cast me out, before she denied me so much. But there's a weight to the word still in my dreams, in my memory. She said, standing on that human's back, she said, it is our responsibility, yours and mine. It was then. It was at that time, but how? The train station was a sanctuary to not only Rock and myself, to not only the doves and the sparrows, but to more. The station was a strangeness. Rock and I were a pair. Mourning doves were mated in 3s and 5s, sparrows nested in their down with pigeon partners, and most oddly, a coyote run had made its home inside the abandoned train cars. They offered their yawning doors to more than just themselves. Among the motley tucked inside were 2 dogs. One, a golden retriever with a coat like copper whose muzzle had long ago gone white. He limped up the stairs each evening, carrying food for the day, but not only for himself, for his friend, the 3-legged basset hound, a basset hound with white dotted spots and red-rimmed eyes. He had a howl so sad it made the mourning doves sing. The groups of doves cooed together every night, and every morning sparrow hopped along beside their pigeon partner. We were at home, all of us together, we misfits of the north. And each night, Rock and I would return to our bench, our bellies full of spoils and our talons full of treasures. And Rock would curl her black body under my wings, and both of us cleaned from winter rain and one another's grooming. We were no longer marred from the city, no longer marred from neglect. We had one another. We all had one another, mismatched as we were, loved as we were. Winter continued. 7 times the sun rose and set. For 7 days, the bodies lay in their cold, slow decay. We would have to move west. This I knew without the help of Katrita, without the help of my wake. My knowing crept up on me, like the longer days had, like my happiness had. The things I'd learned from watching Katrita, from being a part of the wake, transferred to me, to Rock and I as a pair. I no longer needed those who no longer needed me. Rock ate beside me, always beside me. She flew beside me, always beside me. She collected small treasures and returned with them to our bench at night, a plastic jewel here, a pretty stone there, once a ring. For me, all for me. She wanted to be with me. And with that want, that desire to be with me was greater than any false kindness that Katrita had ever given. Ever once, ever. On an afternoon where the sun shone bright and bold, Rock and I fed at a large park in the city around a still pond surrounded by concrete and abandoned food carts, the ground tacky with melt and rot. The toy boats lapped against the pond's concrete embankment, their white hulls and sails waving in the breeze. My talons pulled cloth away from a human leg, and Rock dove her beak into the flesh. I always let her eat first. The ghost of Katrita only haunted me. I had banished her to memory, turned her into a phantom held only in memory, a phantom that haunted me in my dreams, accompanied by the beating of so many wings, accompanied by my wake. I thought, as I heard the hiss of her voice above me, calling out to me from the blinding light, a phantom, only a phantom said, Takrata. The phantom of Katrita said, Takrata, you did not report back. But Rock looked up, black eyes blinking, curious as ever, not a phantom. Katrita was here, surrounded by so many like her, my other brothers and sisters, my family, my wake, her red, bald head more glorious than ever, but her black feathers were dusty, unkempt, her white feathers long ago gray and tattered. She even looked like a haunted version of herself. We were waiting for you, Katrita said, a lie. Her eyes not hungry, not wanting me. The wake loomed, watching us, wanting us. We could have died. Selfish Takrata, you will never change. Yet they were all hail from the bodies of the southern and central city. Katrita's own eyes may not have been hungry, may not have been wanting me, but they burned with something else, something I recognized in my own reflection in that fated window. Katrita's eyes burned hot with jealousy. The world belongs to us now, I remember Katrita saying. We scavengers, we cast-offs, we carrion eaters, those of us who pick up the leavings of those left behind, those of us who were left behind, abandoned, discarded, cast aside. It is our responsibility. She said then, no, it was mine, it was Rock's, it was hers and mine. One night, as Rock was tucked beside me on our bench, I watched the copper-furred golden retriever bring food for the basset hound, and the two curled up together, the basset hound's back against the golden retriever's belly. Then I watched as the coyote run returned for the night, and the last one went in, a younger one, an adolescent. I stopped her. Why do you allow the dogs to stay with you? The coyote shrugged, glancing at me, glancing around. Why do you allow her to stay with you? A fair question, one that deserved a fair answer. We're stronger together, she and I told the coyote. She makes me better than I am alone than I was before. The coyote grinned at me. Same? Big same. The toy boats continued their undulant sway against the concrete embankment. Like them, Katrita spread her wings and cast a shadow over us as she soared, circling us both, as if Rock and I were decaying things, as if we were already dead, or dead to her, long cast out, long forgotten. But we were not. Katrita desired us both. When she landed, she spread her wings wide, dark wings against the concrete, against the waning sun. She was queen of the wake. She held the power here. Katrita, my former sister, the one I looked up to, was now looking down at me, her eyes once again hungry, wanting, desiring, jealous. You did not return, she said again. She hissed, and the wake hissed along with her, black tongues visible in their white beaks. You took up on your own, she said. You abandoned us. You abandoned me. The hissing stopped suddenly, abrupt, bringing with it a silence so thick with the smell of decay and pond muck that I could not quiet my mind. All I thought of was Katrita, how she fed me, how she protected me, how she told me that all she did, all she ever did, was for me, but at a price. I did not notice that Rock, in all her defiance, had walked up to Katrita. Her sheen now was black as rot in Katrita's fourth shadow. Her beak was tilted up, head tilted to the side. But, Rock said, but Tagrata did not abandon you, did she? Did she? All attention was on Rock now. Katrita's in mine. She did not seem to mind. She stood as if the attention was what she wanted, what she sought out. She looked Katrita over, the filthy white feathers, the cracked beak, the red sheen of her head. The wake became silent. They became shadows of themselves. You were the one that cast her out, Rock said. You. She did not leave on her own. You, Katrita, you made her leave. You abandoned her. I took her in. We took her in. It was Katrita's turn to tilt her head now. We? Yes, Rock said. We. The world belongs to us now, Katrita had said once. The humans had only begun to fight. You and me, Tagrata. It is our responsibility. Then her eyes lit upon me with that same cruel desire I had once come to know as familiar. They had been that way since she brought me into the wake with an outstretched ring and proud hiss. I was hers. I would always be hers. And she made sure of that. I did what she wanted, when she wanted. It was forbidden to do anything else. The wake followed in our stead, in her stead. As she and I soared high above the trees, high above the farmlands, she marveled at the beauty of our shadows. We will cut through this world like talons, she said. You and me, Tagrata, you and me. But I was never such a thing, her talon, her destroying thing. My heart was never so sharp, my shadow always broken by a tree branch, by a sun shaft, by the reflection of 1,000 windows. I could never be what Katrita wanted me to be. I found another who matched me, not in size or feathers or beak, but in generosity and spirit. But Katrita had seen how my heart beat in my throat with Rock's curiosity so near. She had no choice but to cast me out. Now, as her own heartbeat did the same, standing so close to me, she remembered. She remembered why she kept me so close at all. Now a howl pierced my concentration, one so sad it set a coat of doves to singing. Then a cacophony of wings as birds surrounded Rock, surrounded me, the mourning doves, the sparrows, the pigeons, all of them coming to join us, joining us. The familiar sound of the golden retriever's heavy panting, the basset hound's three-legged plodding, and the click, clack, click of the coyote run's claws on the concrete coming toward us. We are stronger together, we misfits of the North. What is this? Katrita asked. Shell's eyes now light with her. What have you done? Once, I said, I had a wake. You shut me out of it, banished me, tossed me aside. I was alone within it, but now I'm not. The wake shuddered, clattering of talons on their perch, a collective shudder of disapproval. Katrita was also not alone, but her posture betrayed her. She spread her wings wide once more and hissed, her hissing born of fear, of spite. They don't want to attack you, Rack said. We don't want to attack you. Then what do you want? To let us be, I said. To let us be and never come back. The undulant sway of the boats now danced to the coyote howls, to the barking of dogs, to the cooing of doves, to the singing of sparrows. Katrita did not wait. Her throat fluttered a dozen more times before she took wing. She soared high to the park's trees, her once crisp shadow muted by dappled sunlight, cast into 1,000 pieces by winter sun. With a second cacophony of wings, the wake too took flight. Rock tipped her beak up to mine, so I brought mine down to meet it. This was what I wanted. This was where I belonged. Rock and I did this together. We all did this together, all of us. But it was Rock, most of all, who was strongest. That night, after I brought back food for the coyote run as a gift, for the golden retriever, for the basset hound, Rock brought me a gift, a coin, with an eagle on it. Its wings were spread wide while it held arrows in one of its talons, a branch in the other. We sat so close on the bench, so close. Still, she nudged the coin to me, closing the small space between us. That's you, she said. That's you. No, I said, running my beak along the crest of her black feathers, running the hook of my beak along her sheen, threw her down. No, I said. It's both of us. And that's the end.
Wow. That was awesome.
Thank you.
You know, Laura and I explicitly avoid creating a program every week. Rather, we sort of just like to see what kind of resonance emerges between the stories. And these two stories, man, they're just ringing together like bells. It's just astonishing.
I have to come clean, Daniel. They did it themselves. Mina wanted specifically to read this story on Inauguration Day, which I thought was a really good idea.
Absolutely.
And once Jordan found out what she was reading, that helped them decide what to read.
Okay.
So this one time, it was actually planned, but it really
Still,
worked, didn't it?
oh,
It paid
it
off.
was a great program. It was a great evening. Thank you both. And wonderful readings too. Just so well done. Deep breath. Pause. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for another story hour. Next week, we have Sam Reveline and R.S. Benedict. So please join us. And meanwhile, stay safe, take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll see you around. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.